The Kale Nebula was a graveyard. Every species in the known galaxy knew this. Old ships came here to die. Old empires left their wreckage, floating in the purple clouds of gas and dust. Nobody traveled through the Kale Nebula unless they were lost, desperate, or looking for something that did not want to be found. Commander Dralis stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vicari cruiser Ironthorn, and stared out at the swirling darkness. His 4 eyes blinked slowly. His gray skin reflected the cold light of his control panels. He was tired. His fleet had been patrolling the outer rim of Vicari space for 6 standard months, and they had found nothing. No enemies, no pirates, no threats, just empty space and silence. "Commander," said his sensor officer, a young Vicari named Pellis, "I am picking up something strange." Dralis turned his head. "Define strange." Pellis tapped his console. His thin fingers moved quickly across the glowing screen. "A large object. Very large. It is drifting at the edge of the nebula. No power signature. No heat. No life signs. It appears to be a ship." Dralis walked closer. He looked at the data on the screen and felt something cold move through his chest. The object was massive. It was longer than 3 Vicari cruisers placed end to end. Its shape was unlike anything in the Vicari database. It was not Vicari. It was not from any of the 12 known species in the Galactic Council. It was something else entirely. "Show me," Dralis said. Pellis brought the image up on the main screen. The bridge crew went silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing and looked up. The ship was dark, completely dark. It floated through the nebula like a dead animal drifting in deep water. Its hull was black, not painted black, but built from some material that seemed to swallow light itself. There were no visible windows, no running lights, no markings that they could read. The ship looked like it had been sleeping in the void for a very long time. "What is it?" whispered one of the junior officers. Nobody answered. Dralis felt his 2 hearts beating faster. In all his years of service, he had never seen anything like this. The ship was beautiful in a terrible way. It was sharp and angular, built like a blade. Even dead and drifting, it looked dangerous. "Run it through every database we have," Dralis ordered. "Every archive, every record. I want to know who built this thing." Pellis worked for several minutes. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of the Ironthorn's engines. Finally, Pellis looked up. His face was pale. "Nothing, Commander. There is no match. This ship does not belong to any known species." Dralis stared at the screen. An unknown ship, an unknown builder, drifting alone in a nebula full of dead things. His instincts told him to leave it alone. His orders told him to investigate anything unusual. And his curiosity, the thing that had gotten him into trouble many times before, told him that this was the most interesting thing he would ever find. "How old is it?" Dralis asked. Pellis ran more scans. "Based on the dust accumulation on the hull and the decay of certain surface materials, I estimate it has been drifting here for at least 300 standard years. Possibly longer." 300 years. Dralis let that number sit in his mind. 300 years ago, the Vicari Empire was still fighting border wars with the Telani. 300 years ago, half the species in the Galactic Council had not even achieved faster than light travel. And this ship, this enormous, terrifying ship, had already been out here, alone, waiting. "Is it truly dead?" Dralis asked. "All scans confirm 0 power output," Pellis said. "No energy readings of any kind. No electromagnetic signals. No radiation. It is completely inert. It is a hulk, Commander. A derelict." Dralis nodded slowly. A derelict. That was the word he wanted to hear. A dead ship meant no danger. A dead ship meant salvage. And a ship this large, built by an unknown species with unknown technology, could contain things of enormous value. Weapons, engines, materials, knowledge. The Vakari High Council would reward him greatly for such a find. Signal the fleet, Dralis said. All ships move to surround the object. Maintain a safe distance of 2,000 lengths. Prepare a boarding party. His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Torath, stepped forward. Commander, I would advise caution. We do not know what is inside that ship. We do not know who built it. Unknown things in the Kale Nebula have killed Vakari before. Dralis looked at Torath. The old soldier's face was serious. He was not a coward, but he was careful, and careful soldiers lived longer than brave ones. Your concern is noted, Torath, Dralis said. But our scans are clear. The ship is dead. There is no power, no life. It is a relic from a forgotten age, nothing more. We will board it, catalog its contents, and bring our findings to the High Council. This will be the greatest discovery of our careers. Torath said nothing. He simply lowered his head in respect and stepped back. But his eyes stayed on the dark shape floating on the screen, and he did not look away. The Vakari fleet moved into position. 5 cruisers and 8 support ships formed a ring around the unknown vessel. Shuttles were prepared. Soldiers checked their weapons and their armor. Engineers packed scanning equipment and cutting tools. Everyone moved with purpose, but there was a tension in the air that nobody could explain. It was as if the ship on the screen was watching them, even though every instrument said it was dead. Dralis stood at the viewport of his bridge and looked at the black warship with his own eyes. Up close, it was even more impressive. The hull was covered in strange patterns, lines and shapes that might have been decoration or might have been something else entirely. There were sections of the hull that looked like they could open, like doors or hatches or weapon ports, but all of them were sealed shut. The ship gave away nothing. Boarding party is ready, Commander, Torath reported. Dralis took a deep breath. Send them in. The first shuttle launched from the Iron Thorn and flew toward the dark giant. It looked like a small fish swimming toward a sleeping whale. The shuttle's lights cut through the nebula dust, and for a moment they lit up a section of the black hull. Dralis saw something there, just for a second, before the light moved on. A marking on the hull. He could not read it, but it looked like writing. He did not know it then, but the symbol was a word. A word from a language that the galaxy had forgotten, a language spoken by a species that the Vakari had never encountered. The word was simple. It was the name of the ship, Baco. And the Baco was not dead. It was only sleeping. The shuttle docked on the hull of the black ship with a heavy clang that echoed through the small craft. The boarding party sat in silence. There were 12 of them. 10 soldiers in full combat armor, and 2 engineers carrying scanning equipment. They were the best the Iron Thorn had. Every one of them had seen combat. Every one of them had boarded enemy ships before. But none of them had ever boarded anything like this. The team leader was a Vakari officer named Sarek. He was tall, even by Vakari standards, and his gray skin was marked with the ritual scars of a warrior caste. He checked his plasma rifle one more time and looked at his soldiers. Listen to me, Sarek said. We do not know what is in there. The scans say the ship is dead. Maybe it is, maybe it is not. Stay close, stay quiet. Touch nothing unless I tell you to. If anything moves, you report it before you shoot. Understood? The soldiers nodded. Find us a way in. The 2 engineers moved to the hull and began scanning for entry points. The black metal of the ship was cold. So cold that frost formed on their gloves when they touched it. One of the engineers, a thin Vakari named Derelict, found a seam in the hull. It looked like it could be a door or an access panel. He placed a cutting tool against it and activated the beam. Nothing happened. The beam, which could cut through standard ship armor in seconds, did not leave a mark on the black metal. Derelict tried again, with a higher setting. Still nothing. He looked at Sarek with wide eyes. The hull material is unknown, Bellic said. "Our cutting tools cannot penetrate it." Sarek frowned. He reported this to Commander Dralis on the Ironthorn. There was a pause, and then Dralis ordered them to search for another way in. They walked along the hull for nearly an hour, their magnetic boats keeping them attached to the surface, before they found it. It was round and large enough for 3 Vakari to walk through side by side. And it was slightly open, just a small gap, no wider than a hand, but it was enough. Sarek and 2 soldiers forced the hatch open with hydraulic tools. It moved slowly, as if the ship was reluctant to let them inside. The metal groaned and scraped. Then the hatch was open, and they looked into darkness. Sarek activated the light on his helmet and stepped inside. The corridor was wide and tall, built for beings that were roughly the same size as Vakari, but perhaps slightly shorter. The walls were smooth and dark, made of the same black material as the hull. The air inside was thin and cold, almost freezing. Their breath formed clouds of white mist in the beam of their lights. They moved slowly. The corridor branched in several directions, and Sarek chose the path that led deeper into the ship. The floor beneath their feet was covered in a thin layer of dust. Nobody had walked here in a very long time. Their footprints were the first marks in centuries. "This place is a tomb," one of the soldiers whispered. Sarek did not correct him. It felt like a tomb. The silence was heavy and deep. There were no sounds at all, no humming of engines, no whisper of air systems, no creaking of metal. Just silence, complete and total silence. They passed through several large rooms. One looked like it might have been a common area, with long tables and benches built into the walls. Another was filled with strange machines that the engineers could not identify. Everything was dark. Everything was still. Everything was covered in dust and frost. Then they found the writing. It was on the walls of a long corridor that led to what appeared to be the center of the ship. The writing was in a language they had never seen before. The letters were angular and sharp, carved directly into the black metal. Bellic scanned them and ran them through every translation program he had. None of them could identify the language. "It is not in any known database," Bellic said quietly. "This species is completely unknown to us." They kept moving. The corridor ended at a massive door. It was twice the height of a Vakari, and made of a metal that was slightly different from the rest of the ship. It was lighter in color, almost silver, and it had a symbol in its center. The same symbol that Dralis had seen on the outer hull. The name of the ship. Sarek pushed the door. It did not move. He pushed harder. Nothing. Then, as if responding to their presence, something clicked deep inside the wall, and the door slid open on its own. The soldiers raised their weapons. Sarek held up his hand, telling them to hold their fire. They stepped into a large circular room. It was the heart of the ship. They could feel it. The room was different from the rest of the vessel. The walls were lined with panels and screens, all dark, all dead. In the center of the room, there was a raised platform, and on that platform, there was a cryopod. The cryopod was the only thing in the entire ship that showed any sign of power. A tiny light glowed on its surface, blinking slowly. Green, then dark. Green, then dark. Like a heartbeat. Like something breathing in its sleep. Sarek walked closer. He looked through the frosted glass of the pod and felt his blood go cold. There was a being inside. It was not Vakari. It was not any species he had ever seen. It was smaller than a Vakari, with soft skin that was pale from centuries of frozen sleep. It had dark hair that floated slightly in the cryofluid. Its face was smooth and calm, like a person in a peaceful dream. It was a female, he thought, though he could not be sure. "Commander," Sarek said into his communicator, "we have found something. There is a cryopod in the central chamber. It is still active. There is a being inside. It is alive. There was silence on the other end. Then Dralis spoke. Alive? Are you certain? The pod is functioning. The occupant appears preserved. I believe it has been in stasis for the entire time the ship has been drifting. Another pause. Can you extract the pod? Sarek looked at the pod. It was connected to the platform by thick cables and tubes. The blinking green light continued its slow rhythm. He reached out and touched the surface of the pod. That was his mistake. The moment his fingers made contact with the glass, the green light turned red. A sound filled the room. It was low and deep, like the growl of an animal waking from a long sleep. The panels on the walls flickered. One of them lit up for just a second, showing a symbol and a line of text in that unknown language. Then it went dark again. But the sound did not stop. It spread through the walls, through the floor, through the entire ship. Sarek stepped back from the pod. His soldiers raised their weapons. The engineers grabbed their equipment and moved toward the door. "What did you do?" Bellic asked, his voice shaking. "I do not know," Sarek said. Deep inside the ship, somewhere far below them, something hummed to life. It was quiet at first, barely a whisper. Then it grew. The dust on the floor began to vibrate. The frost on the walls began to melt. The air, which had been thin and dead, began to move. Sarek felt a breeze on his face, warm and steady, like the breath of something enormous waking up. The cryopod hissed. A crack appeared in the frost on the glass. The red light blinked faster, faster, faster. Inside the pod, the being's eyes moved behind closed lids. Its fingers twitched. Its lips parted slightly, and a small cloud of breath escaped from its mouth. "Get out," Sarek ordered. "Now." The boarding party ran. They moved through the corridors as fast as they could, their boots pounding on the floor that was no longer silent. The ship was waking up around them. Lights flickered on and off in the walls. Sounds echoed from deep within the vessel. Mechanical sounds, grinding and clicking and humming, as systems that had been dormant for 300 years began to come alive. Sarek was the last one through the hatch. He pulled himself onto the shuttle and screamed at the pilot to launch. The shuttle detached from the hull and flew back toward the Iron Thorn at full speed. Behind them, on the black hull of the sleeping warship, lights began to glow. One by one, like eyes opening in the dark. Red lights, dozens of them, then hundreds. On the bridge of the Iron Thorn, Commander Dralis watched the screen and felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. "Commander," Pellis said, his voice barely a whisper. "The ship. It is powering up." The Baco was awake. The red lights spread across the hull of the Baco like fire, moving through dry grass. What had been a dead, dark shape floating in the nebula was now something else entirely. The ship was alive. Its hull glowed with lines of energy that pulsed in steady rhythms, like veins carrying blood through a body that had just taken its first breath in 300 years. On the bridge of the Iron Thorn, every alarm was screaming. Pellis was shouting readings from his console, his voice cracking with panic. The other officers were frozen at their stations, staring at the main screen, where the Baco was transforming before their eyes. "Energy output is increasing rapidly," Pellis reported. "It has already passed the output of our entire fleet combined. It is still climbing. Commander, the weapons ports on the hull are opening." Dralis gripped the railing in front of him. Along the sides of the black warship, panels were sliding open to reveal rows of weapon systems that the Vakari had never seen before. They were not plasma cannons. They were not missile launchers. They were something else, something that the scanners could not identify, and that made them more terrifying than anything Dralis had ever faced. "Shields up on all ships," Dralis ordered. "Move the fleet to defensive formation. Charge all weapons, but do not fire. I repeat, do not fire." The Vakari fleet responded quickly. The 5 cruisers shifted position, forming a tight cluster with their shields overlapping. The support ships moved behind the cruisers for protection. Every gun in the fleet was aimed at the Baco, but nobody pulled the trigger. Not yet. Then a voice came through every communication channel in the Vakari fleet. It cut through their encryption like it was nothing. It spoke in a language they did not understand at first. Harsh and fast, full of sharp sounds. Then it paused, and when it spoke again, it was in perfect Vakari. Attention, unknown vessels. You are within the defensive perimeter of the HSS Baco, registry number 774, Human Systems Navy. You have triggered a security protocol by making unauthorized contact with a stasis unit. Identify yourselves immediately, or you will be classified as hostile. The bridge of the Ironthorn went silent. Every officer looked at Dralis. He stared at the screen, where the black warship sat surrounded by the glow of its own power, and he tried to understand what he had just heard. Human. The voice had said human. Dralis had never heard that word before. "This is Commander Dralis of the Vakari Imperial Fleet," he said, keeping his voice steady. "We discovered your vessel adrift in the Kale Nebula and believed it to be a derelict. We were conducting a standard salvage investigation." There was a pause. Then the voice spoke again. It was not the same voice. This one was different. It was not a machine. It was a person. "Commander Dralis, my name is Captain Hana Yoon of the Human Systems Navy. You boarded my ship without permission, and you touched my cryopod. That was not wise." Dralis felt the cold in his chest again. "Captain Yoon, I apologize for the intrusion. We did not know anyone was alive on board. Our scans showed no life signs." "Your scans are 300 years behind our technology," Hana said. Her voice was calm, but hard, like stone. "Your scans would not find what we do not want found." On the Baco, everything was moving. The ship's AI, the system that called itself Dokubi, had brought every system online in less than 4 minutes. Lights flooded the corridors. Air systems pumped warm, breathable atmosphere through every room. The engines, which had been cold and silent for centuries, now hummed with a deep, powerful vibration that could be felt through the entire vessel. In the central chamber, the cryopod had fully opened. Captain Hana Yoon sat on the edge of the platform, breathing slowly. Her body was stiff from the long sleep. Her muscles ached. Her vision was blurry. But her mind was sharp. It was always sharp. That was why they had chosen her for this mission. She was a small woman with short black hair and dark eyes that missed nothing. She wore a gray uniform that was standard issue for the Human Systems Navy, though that navy had not existed for a very long time. On her chest was a patch showing the symbol of the Baco, a white tiger with its mouth open in a silent roar. "Dokubi," she said. "Status report." The AI's voice filled the room. It was warm and steady, almost friendly, but there was something underneath it that was not friendly at all. "You have been in stasis for 312 years, 4 months, and 9 days. All ship systems are operational. Hull integrity is at 98%. Weapon systems are online and fully charged. We are currently surrounded by 13 alien vessels of unknown design. I have locked weapons on all of them." Hana closed her eyes for a moment. 312 years. She had expected it might be a long time, but hearing the number still hurt. Everyone she had known was gone. Every friend, every family member, every person she had served with. All gone. She pushed the feeling down. There would be time for grief later. Right now, she had a job to do. "Where is Teho?" she asked. "Lieutenant Beck is in secondary stasis chamber B, lower deck 7. His pod is intact." "Shall I wake him?" "Wake him." Deep in the ship, another cryopod began its revival cycle. Lieutenant Teho Beck had been sleeping in a hidden chamber that even the Vakari boarding party had not found. His pod was behind a wall that looked like solid metal, but was actually a concealed door. The ship had many secrets like this. The humans who built it had planned for everything. Hana stood up slowly. Her legs were weak, but they held her. She walked to the main console in the center of the room and placed her hand on the surface. The console lit up instantly, recognizing her touch, her DNA, her identity. Screens came alive all around her, showing the positions of the Vakari ships, the status of the Beko's weapons, the composition of the nebula, and 1,000 other pieces of information. She studied the alien ships carefully. They were big but crude. Their shields were basic. Their weapons were primitives by human standards. They were like wooden boats floating next to a submarine. They did not know what they were dealing with. Dakabi, what do we know about these aliens? I have accessed their communication frequencies and downloaded a significant portion of their language and cultural database. They call themselves Vakari. They are a spacefaring empire that controls approximately 400 star systems. They are militaristic and expansionist. Their technology is approximately 200 years behind ours at the time of our departure. Hana raised an eyebrow. 200 years behind what we had 300 years ago. Correct, Captain. She almost smiled. Almost. A door behind her slid open. Lieutenant Teiho Beck walked in, or rather, he stumbled in. He was taller than Hana, with broad shoulders and a face that looked like it had been carved from wood. His hair was messy from the cryofluid, and he was blinking rapidly, trying to force his eyes to focus. Captain, he said, his voice rough. How long? 312 years. Teiho was quiet for a moment. Then he straightened his back, ran a hand through his wet hair, and walked to the weapons console. He placed his hands on the controls, and the console recognized him immediately. Weapon systems are online, he said, reading the screens. All batteries are charged. Gravity lances are at full power. Phantom drones are ready for deployment. Cascade warheads are armed. He looked at Hana. We have enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Let us hope we do not need to, Hana said. She opened the communication channel again. Commander Dralis, I'm going to give you one chance. Pull your fleet back to a distance of 10,000 lengths. Power down your weapons, and tell me everything that has happened in this galaxy in the last 300 years. If you do these things, we can talk like civilized beings. If you do not, my ship will defend itself. And I promise you, Commander, you do not want to see what this ship can do. There was silence on the channel. Hana waited. Teiho kept his hands on the weapons console, ready. The next move belonged to the Vakari. Commander Dralis stood on his bridge and stared at the main screen. His officers were waiting for his order. His fleet was in defensive formation, every weapon charged and ready. 13 ships against 1. The numbers were in his favor. But the numbers did not make him feel safe. Something about the black warship and the calm voice of the woman inside it made him feel like a small animal, standing in front of something very large and very hungry. Toroth stepped forward. Commander, she is bluffing. One ship cannot threaten an entire fleet. We should demand their surrender. Dralis looked at his second-in-command. Toroth was a good soldier, a brave soldier. But bravery and wisdom were not always the same thing. She is not bluffing, Dralis said quietly. How can you know that? Because she is not afraid of us. She sees 13 warships aimed at her, and her voice does not shake. That means she knows something we do not. Dralis made his decision. He ordered the fleet to pull back to 10,000 lengths. He ordered all weapons to standby mode. His officers obeyed, but he could see the confusion and anger on their faces. The Vakari did not retreat. The Vakari did not obey the commands of strangers. But Dralis was their commander, and his word was law. He opened the communication channel. Captain Yoon, we have pulled back as you requested. Our weapons are on standby. I am willing to talk. There was a brief pause, and then Hana's voice returned. Thank you, Commander. That was the smart choice. You said you wanted to know what has happened in the galaxy. I will tell you what I can. But first, I need to understand something. Who are you? What is a human? We have no record of your species anywhere in our databases. On the Baiko, Hana sat in the captain's chair on the bridge. The bridge was fully operational now. Every screen was active. Dokubi was running thousands of calculations per second, analyzing the Vakari fleet, scanning the surrounding space, and searching for any signals from other human ships. Teho stood at the tactical station beside her, monitoring everything. Hana leaned back in her chair and thought carefully about how to answer. The truth was complicated. The truth was old. And the truth was painful. Commander Derelict, she began. Humans are a species from the planet called Earth, in a star system you probably do not have on your maps. We are, or we were, a spacefaring civilization. 300 years ago, we had colonies on over 60 worlds. We had a navy of more than 2,000 ships. We were explorers, builders, and when we needed to be, we were fighters. She paused. On the screen in front of her, she could see the Vakari fleet floating in the distance. 13 ships. It would have been nothing against the old human systems navy. A single battle group could have handled them. Something happened to us, Hana continued. A war. Not with another species. We never found other intelligent life during our time among the stars. The war was with ourselves. Civil war. Colony against colony. Fleet against fleet. It lasted 20 years. And when it was over, we had almost destroyed ourselves. Our colonies were in ruins. Our fleets were shattered. Earth itself was damaged beyond repair. We were dying. Teho listened in silence. He had heard this story before, of course. He had lived through the end of it. But hearing Hana say it now, 300 years after the fact, made it feel different. Final. The last leaders of the human systems navy made a decision, Hana said. They could not save humanity as it was. The population was too scattered, too broken, too tired. So they created the Guardian program. They took 20 of our most advanced warships and placed them in hidden locations across the galaxy. Each ship was crewed by a small team in cryostasis. Each ship had a fully autonomous AI capable of defending itself. Each ship carried the complete knowledge and history of the human race in its databanks. She looked at the symbol on the wall of her bridge. The white tiger. The Baiko. We were the last defense. The sleeping guardians. Our mission was simple. Wait, sleep. And if anyone found us, if any threat approached us, we would wake up and do what humans have always done. We would survive. There was a long silence on the channel. Derelict was processing everything she had said. A species that had risen, built an empire, fought itself to near extinction, and then hidden its greatest weapons across the galaxy, like seeds buried in the ground, waiting for the right moment to grow again. You said 20 ships, Derelict said. Where are the others? I do not know, Hana said. Not yet. Dokbi is scanning for their signals, but the galaxy is large, and 300 years is a long time. Some of them may still be sleeping. Some of them may have been destroyed. Some of them may have already woken up. Derelict felt a chill. The idea of 19 more ships like the Baiko, hidden somewhere in the galaxy, was not a comfortable thought. What do you want, Captain Yoon? Derelict asked. What is your purpose now that you are awake? Hana looked at Teho. He met her eyes and gave a small nod. They had discussed this possibility many times before they went to sleep. They had planned for every scenario. Wake up and find a peaceful galaxy. Wake up and find a hostile one. Wake up and find that humanity was gone. Wake up and find that humanity had somehow survived. I want to find my people, Hana said. If there are any humans left anywhere in this galaxy, I will find them. If the other Guardian ships are still out there, I will find them too. That is my mission. That is why I exist. And if you cannot find them, Derelict asked, if your species is truly gone? Hana's voice did not waver. Then the Baiko and its crew will be the last humans in existence, and we will make sure the galaxy remembers us." The words hung in the silence between the two ships. Dralis sat down in his command chair and thought about what he was dealing with. This woman and her ship were not just a salvage find. They were not just a curiosity. They were a remnant of a civilization that had built weapons the Vakari could not understand, hidden them across the galaxy, and programmed them to wake up fighting. This was not a species that gave up. This was not a species that died quietly. "Captain Yoon," Dralis said carefully, "the Vakari Empire controls this region of space. We have laws. We have borders. I cannot simply let an unknown warship travel freely through our territory." "I understand," Hana said, "and I respect your authority in your own space. But let me be very clear, Commander. The Baiko is not asking for permission. I told my ship to give you a chance because I prefer peace over war. But if your empire tries to stop me, if your leaders try to capture my ship or my crew, I will defend myself. And your fleet has already seen what my ship can do when it simply wakes up. Imagine what it can do when it is angry." Toraf slammed his fist on his console. "This is an insult," he hissed at Dralis. "She is one ship with 2 crew members. She dares to threaten the Vakari Empire? We should destroy her now while we have the chance." Dralis looked at Torath, and then he looked at the screen. The Baiko sat in the nebula, like a predator resting in tall grass. Its weapons were visible now, rows and rows of systems that the Vakari could not even name. Its shields were up, glowing faintly with an energy that made the nebula dust swirl around the hull in strange patterns. One ship, 2 crew members, and an AI that had cracked Vakari encryption in seconds. Dralis made his decision. It was the wrong one. "All ships," he said slowly, "charge weapons to full power. Target the alien vessel." Torath smiled. Hana sighed. "Dokubi," she said quietly. "They chose wrong." "Yes, Captain," the AI replied. "They did." Teho's hands moved across the weapons console. His face was calm. His breathing was steady. He had trained for this his entire career. He had gone to sleep ready for this moment, and he had woken up still ready. "All systems are green, Captain," he said, "waiting for your order." Hana closed her eyes for 1 second, just 1 second. Then she opened them. The first shot from the Baiko was a gravity lance. It was invisible. There was no flash of light, no beam, no projectile. The space between the Baiko and the nearest Vakari cruiser simply bent. The cruiser's shields collapsed instantly, crushed like paper under a boot. The hull followed. The entire front section of the ship folded inward on itself, twisted into a shape that metal was never meant to take. The ship did not explode. It just crumpled, silently and completely, in less than 2 seconds. On the bridge of the Ironthorn, the crew watched in horror. One of their cruisers, a vessel carrying 800 Vakari soldiers and officers, had just been destroyed without a single visible weapon being fired. It was as if an invisible hand had reached out and crushed it like an insect. "What was that?" Pella screamed. "What did they fire? I have no readings. There is no energy signature. How did they do that?" There was no answer to give. Commander Dralis stood frozen at the center of his bridge. His mind was trying to process what he had just seen, but it could not. The Vakari had been the dominant military power in this region of the galaxy for 200 years. They had conquered dozens of species. They had never lost a fleet engagement. And now, in the first 2 seconds of this battle, they had lost a cruiser to a weapon they could not see, could not detect, and could not understand. "All ships return fire," Dralis ordered. His voice sounded hollow, even to himself. The Vakari fleet fired everything they had. Plasma bolts streaked across the void. Missiles launched in swarms. Energy beams cut through the nebula dust. The full firepower of 12 warships converged on the Baiko, in a storm of destruction that should have vaporized anything in its path. The Baiko did not move. It did not need to. The plasma bolts splashed against a barrier that glowed blue on impact and then faded. The missiles detonated harmlessly against the same barrier. The energy beams scattered and broke apart. Not a single shot reached the hull. Not one. On the Baiko's bridge, Dokebi reported the incoming fire with the calm tone of someone describing the weather. Enemy fleet has opened fire. All incoming ordnance intercepted by primary shields. Shield integrity remains at 100%. No damage sustained. Teiho looked at the readings and shook his head. Their weapons are so weak, it is like being hit by rain. Hana did not take pleasure in this. She had hoped they would not fire. She had given them every chance to walk away. But the Vakari had chosen war, and war was something humans understood better than any species that had ever lived. It was the one thing they had never forgotten how to do. Launch phantom drones, Hana ordered. Disable their support ships. I do not want to kill anyone we do not have to. Teiho tapped his console. From the sides of the Baiko, dozens of small dark objects launched into space. They were phantom drones, autonomous machines no larger than a person, equipped with precision cutting beams and electronic warfare systems. They moved fast, faster than anything the Vakari had, and they were nearly invisible to sensors. The drones reached the 8 support ships in seconds. They did not destroy them. They cut into them with surgical precision, severing power conduits, disabling engine systems, and killing weapon controls. One by one, the support ships went dark. Their lights flickered and died. Their engines stopped. They drifted, helpless and alive like fish pulled from the water. 8 ships disabled in less than 30 seconds. No casualties. Dralis watched his support fleet go silent and felt something break inside him. This was not a battle. The human ship was teaching them how powerless they were, and it was doing so with terrifying efficiency. Commander, Torath said. His voice had changed. The confidence was gone. The aggression was gone. What remained was the voice of a soldier who understood, finally, that he was outmatched. We need to retreat. We cannot win this fight. We need to fall back and report to the High Council. Dralis wanted to agree. Every instinct told him to run. But his pride, the same pride that had made him order the attack, would not let him. Not yet. Target their weapons ports, Dralis ordered. Concentrate fire from all remaining cruisers on a single point. Find a weakness. The 4 remaining cruisers focused their fire on the Baiko. Every gun, every missile, every beam was aimed at a single section of the black hull. The concentrated barrage was enormous, enough firepower to level a city. It struck the Baiko's shields and achieved nothing. The blue barrier did not even flicker. Hana watched the Vakari's desperate attack on her tactical screen. She felt tired. Not physically tired, though her body was still recovering from 3 centuries of frozen sleep. She was tired in her soul, tired of violence, tired of war. Humans had fought each other for thousands of years before they went to the stars, and then they had fought each other among the stars until they nearly went extinct. And now, the first aliens she had ever met were shooting at her. Some things never changed. Dokebi, she said. Target the weapon systems on the remaining cruisers. Gravity lances, lowest power setting. I want their guns gone, but their ships intact. Minimum casualties. Understood, Captain. The Baiko fired 4 times. 4 invisible pulses of gravitational force crossed the distance between the ships in an instant. Each pulse hit a Vakari cruiser with perfect accuracy, striking only the weapon arrays mounted on their hulls. The weapons crumpled and broke apart, torn from the ships by forces they were never built to withstand. Armor plating peeled away, gun barrels bent and snapped, missile launchers were crushed flat. In 10 seconds, the entire Vakari fleet was disarmed. 12 ships, helpless. 1 ship still untouched. The Iron Thorn shook violently as its weapon arrays were ripped from its hull. Dralis was thrown from his feet. Officers tumbled across the bridge. Alarms screamed. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. When Dralis pulled himself up from the floor, the main screen showed him the truth. His weapons were gone. All of them. Every gun on every ship in his fleet had been destroyed with perfect precision. But the ships themselves were intact. The hulls were damaged where the weapons had been torn away, but the main structures were whole. Engines were functional. The crew was alive. She had disarmed them without killing them. Dralis sat in his command chair and opened the communication channel. His hands were shaking. Captain Yoon. Commander Dralis. I surrender. My fleet is yours. I do not want your fleet, Commander. I do not want your territory, your resources, or your empire. I told you what I want. I want to find my people. Dralis closed his 4 eyes. Then go. Find your people. We will not stop you. We cannot stop you. Hana leaned forward in her chair. Before I go, I need information. Your databases, your star charts, everything you know about the galaxy as it is now. 300 years is a long time, Commander, and I need to understand what the universe looks like today. Dralis ordered Pellis to transmit everything. Star charts, species databases, political maps, historical records, everything the Vakari had collected over centuries of expansion. The data streamed across the void and into the Bako's systems, where Dokkaebi absorbed it in minutes. Interesting, Dokkaebi said. The galaxy has changed significantly. There are now 12 major spacefaring species, organized in a loose council. The Vakari are the most militarily powerful. None of them have encountered humans before. And human signals? Hana asked. Any trace of human activity anywhere? Dokkaebi was quiet for a moment. That moment felt like an hour. Searching, cross-referencing Vakari records with known human colony locations. Another pause. Captain, I have found something. In the Vakari records, there is a reference to an uncharted region of space near the galactic core that the Council species avoid. They call it the Silent Zone. No ships that enter it return. But the coordinates of the Silent Zone overlap with 3 former human colony systems. Hana's heart beat faster. 3 colony systems in a zone that nobody could enter and nobody returned from. It could be anything. It could be nothing. But it could also be humans. Humans who had survived. Humans who had built something in the dark while the rest of the galaxy forgot they existed. She looked at Taeho. He was already plotting a course. Dokkaebi, scan for Guardian ship signals along the route to the Silent Zone. Scanning. A pause. Captain, I am detecting 2 faint signals consistent with Guardian ship beacons. One is approximately 40 light-years from our current position. The other is near the edge of the Silent Zone itself. 2 more ships. 2 more crews sleeping in the dark, waiting to be woken up. Hana felt something warm spread through her chest. Hope. She had not felt hope in a very long time. Set a course for the nearest beacon, Hana ordered. Maximum speed. The Bako's engines roared to life. The sound was deep and powerful, a sound that the nebula had not heard in 3 centuries. The ship turned slowly, its massive hull cutting through the purple clouds of gas and dust, and pointed itself toward the stars. Taeho looked at Hana. Do you think anyone survived? Do you think there are still humans out there? Hana thought about it. She thought about Earth, broken and burning. She thought about the colonies, shattered by war. She thought about the 20 Guardian ships sent into the void as humanity's last hope. And she thought about the Silent Zone, where no alien ship returned from, sitting right on top of old human colonies. She smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad, but real. We are human, Taeho. Surviving is what we do. It is the one thing we have always been good at. Even when we are the ones trying to destroy ourselves, we find a way to keep going. It is stubborn. It is foolish. but it is who we are. She turned back to the main screen, where the stars stretched out before them in an endless field of light. Somewhere out there, in the dark and the silence, there were more ships like the Baiko, more humans like her and Teho, more guardians waiting to wake up. "Time to wake the others," she whispered. The Baiko surged forward and vanished into the stars, leaving behind a fleet of broken Vakari ships, and a commander who would spend the rest of his life telling anyone who would listen about the day he met the humans. Nobody believed him. Not at first.